Okay, here we go. Hello everyone. How's it going? All right. How are you all doing? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear the music? Is the music too loud? Let me know. This is exciting. Hello. Yeah, let me know if you can hear me all right. Let's give it a few minutes. I've been guzzling tea this whole time. Hello. Okay, yeah. I'm assuming you can hear me. Hey, thank you all so much for coming. Okay, perfect. Audio seems good. All right, cool. Welcome to the Ugly Goblin's very first live stream ever. It's very exciting. God, yeah, I really hoped that this thing would work first time around. So it seems to all be working. You can all see me anyway and hear me, so that's all positive. So in this stream, it's gonna be pretty casual. When we do hit 3,000 followers, I'm going to do a big stream where I'm going to talk about my world's lore and everything. The world is called Gostar, and it's a world I've been developing for over 7 years now. So we'll get to that in the future. I'm like, if you're interested, if questions go that way, I can happily share. But this stream is just going to be me chatting away, answering whatever questions you want to have, me getting to know you all. And you getting to know me, the Ugly Goblin. So it's nice to see you. Thank you all so much for hopping on. You might hear my dog occasionally in the background. She, whenever I'm on the stream, whenever myself and my partner were playing games or whatever, talking to anyone else, she gets jealous. So I apologize for loud dog barks in the future. But yes. So, has anyone, to start things off, does anyone want to ask their first question? I'd love to hear what questions you have for me, if any. Okay, we got it. What's here? We got it. Yeah, 7 years is a long time. It's one of those ones, it started off as a one-shot, and then I was like, hey, do you guys want to do another one, but we'll set it like in a cyberpunk setting where you get to play the same characters? And they're like, yeah, and so we did that. And that was maybe one shot, and there was maybe another one shot, and it just kept going. And it's been going on for 7 years. 7 years of one long one shot. Let me see, what have we got? It's insane. When we first started playing, it was already like 5 years into being developed. Yeah, that Blue, yeah. So I've been running games for Blue for about 2 years. We've started that campaign's been going on for nearly 3 years, and it's been amazing. It's been so much fun. That was my first kind of second big campaign that I played with totally new people, and we're still going, and it's just a joy. Yeah, such a good game. So that really old game. Oh, thank you, Scorptech. Thank you so much for that little sticker. That's so cute. There should be little alert boxes, which I hope come up in the future. But yes, the that 7-year campaign, that is, we've called it the Beta Questers, because essentially that group has forged the paths for many other games that I've run in this world ever since. Yeah, the Beta Questers, really close friends of mine. We're all now all over the world. Some of us are in England, some of us are in America. Are they in England, that group? No, I'm wrong. France, occasionally Spain. I'm here in Finland now. I used to live in Ireland. Some are back in Ireland. Some of my players live in Canada. It's just everywhere. But we're still playing, and it keeps us all close, which is it's a wonderful thing to have. Let me see. Ambers, you say, could you give a sentence teaser on your world? Sentence teaser. A lot of my friends refer to it as the ball sack world due to its geometry. Oh, thank you so much, Ben. Thank you for donating to the super chat. It's come up now. Okay, it was a bit of a delay with the alert. Thank you, Scorptech. Yeah, so in a sense, ball-stack world is probably a crude way to say it. So Gostar is teaser. Damn, I could totally get this down in like one sentence. This is like your classic pitch meeting stuff. I would say it is a world closely connected to our own and many other worlds. It's like the hub world for the entire multiverse of D&D. It's divided into 6 realms. Each one used to originally be ruled over by a Fey Lord. Fey Lord is just a surname, it's the name of a family of 6 dragons. And they used to be these big kingpins of the world, and they've now slowly fallen to the wayside a little bit. And I'll be showing a little break video at some point, you might be interested in, where I will show you a little teaser on my world. This is a little video I put together a little while back on my world, and kind of just a summary of the history, and it gets people into the streams when I usually stream on Into the Multiverse on Twitch. But yeah, you see, I'm falling behind a little bit. There's loads of comments here. So Katiana says, Godstar's amazing. I really enjoy playing in the world. Thank you. And I really enjoy having you in the world. It's a wonderful, wonderful time. Your wonderful goblin tiefling hybrid. Is that Nombo? Am I pronouncing that right? Or is it Gnomebo? Nombo. You say, what's my favorite TTRPG system? It's gotta be Dungeons and Dragons. I've played a lot, but Dungeons and Dragons is very dear to my heart. I've just made so many memories through Dungeons and Dragons, and for me, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for like over 14 years. Like Brendan Lee Mulligan had a really good quote, or like a point he made, where he talked about D&D and why he doesn't use as many other systems. And he said, like, a guy who has trained all his life with using a knife or the art of a sword or something, and has done everything their whole life with a sword. Like, you know, opening beer cans, opening doors, flushing a toilet, all that stuff. It's just a complete other, like, an extra limb. He said, like, why would a guy who's been using a sword all his life learn to use a bottle opener? Even though it makes perfect sense to use a bottle opener, it's far easier for him to use a sword, even for like really weird specific things like that, because he's just so used to it, and he can do so many things with something because he knows it so well. For me, Dungeons and Dragons is like that. It's my comfort food, but it's such a simple system, 5e in particular. It's like this blank canvas that I can customize very easily. It's become like a putty to me. And so that's why I like 5e. But if I had to choose something else, I had a little dabble in Dungeon Crawl Classic, and I would love to go back to it and play a little more with maybe more of a homebrew world. I was sticking more to like a module, which are great for when you first start to play something new. But I think I would have a lot more fun if I just made my own custom world with that system. I also really want to do a campaign with the roll for shoes mechanic, where you just for anyone who doesn't know, roll for shoes is, I'm going to turn this music down a teeny bit, it's just a little too loud for me. I don't know if it's too loud for any of you. But roll for shoes is basically, if anyone wants to do anything, they've got to roll a d6. And if they get a 6 on the dice, they kind of learn that skill. So say they want to open a door, they roll a dice, they get a 6 on the dice, they now have the skill open doors. And you can use that skill to whatever degree of creativity you want to use. So, you know, roll a 6-sided dice, I want to open the door to his heart or something, and so you want to use that ability when you're rolling a d6, and you can continue to level up that ability and branch it off if you continue to get 6s on the dice rolls, all 6s as it levels up. So if open doors turns into, say, win hearts, you now have Win Hearts level 2. So you roll 2d6s when you use that ability, and you have to get 2d6s to level up into something else. Really, really fun, messy system. Good for like short games. Okay, let me go back here and see if I miss any questions. Amber says the dog show on Thanksgiving called Shelties, Little Spark Barky, most accurate description ever. Yes, she is such a talkative dog, Blue. She talks about everything. There's like, we often spend, my partner, she spent about half an hour on the sofa there the other day, just talking to her, just being like, and she was like, and it was back and forth for like 30 minutes. It's crazy. Very vocal girl. Sometimes alert boxes are on delays. Yes, actually, yeah. Ballsack supremacy. You're welcome. Thank you. We love Gostar Ballsack. Yes. EG or egg. I don't know how you want that to be pronounced, but you say, have you had a player that uses split personality for a character multi-class? That's really cool. That's a really awesome idea. I don't think I have. I've had people use multi-classing as a development of their character's personality, for sure. We have a character, Future Potema. Basically, anytime a massive event has happened in the game, she's multi-class. She's multi-class like a gazillion times now, which is really fun. I've had same player who plays Future Potema also plays a character called Ghostly O'Keefe, who is the best wizard ever. She starts as a fighter, and she's taken all the other levels in wizard, but she has 8 intelligence, and she only uses. She designed it to be that she only uses. Is it the sword or the magic thing? Basically, she swaps, I think, to using a sword when she's run out of spells. Which hasn't happened yet, but that will be a thing where she's like run out of all her magic, and now she has to bring back that kind of fighter side of her character. She kind of fought in like arenas in like gladiator pit. She was like a slave, and so she doesn't want to have that side of her come out, so she uses magic instead, and that's her kind of uplifting Genki personality. So she hasn't had to bring out the trauma yet, but maybe at some stage soon. And we have Katiana say, what is my favorite realm in Gostar? And what would be my favorite creature who I've homebrewed in the world? Okay, so I won't do the Gostar realm yet. I will show you off Gostar. Maybe later in the stream, people do want to see that. So I'll get to that question later. You have to remind me. But my favorite creature I've homebrewed in Gostar. I mean, I love the Feylords, honestly. They're just a classic. They're really, really fun. I also really enjoy the stat block I have made for Zachriel, the Dreamer, in his mortal form. So recently, in one of our games, the Dreamer, who is basically the god of the universe, god of everything, he dreamt up the universe. He fell asleep and basically started dreaming up reality as a whole. And whenever he wakes up, the dream ends and reality retracts back and disappears. And then he gets bored of the nothingness and then the endless void. So he goes back to sleep and dreams up another world. And this kept happening. And eventually the things that were created at the very beginning, which are the Titans, very long-winded thing. Basically, Titans stole his eyes, threw them out into the universe so he couldn't wake up again. Very mythological reasoning there for that. And essentially, so he's the god of everything. He can't wake up. All his cultists and stuff try to gather the eyes again so that he can wake up once more. But in the beta questers, they are now going to the end of the universe to try to beat this guy up and kill him. So he doesn't wake up again. He started to wake up and the universe is starting to disappear. So they're running away from the disappearing universe, heading for him, trying to kill him or reason with him or whatever. So he knows he's going to die. And so in the PB Rebellion, which is the other party, which is all connected, all this is one big multiverse, all the all the games take place in the same world of Gostar, but in alternate timelines and different realities. So in their reality, which is kind of exists coincidentally with the beta questers, they have he's starting to make a mortal body in the or he has made a mortal body in the PB Rebellion world, which is basically his backup for when he when he dies. It might be a bit of a spoiler, but I kind of figured it maybe is a little obvious. I'm not sure if I hinted at that, but that he wants to live in a mortal body in the world, and I won't go into too many details, but I've made a stat block for him, several, because I want him to be like a Final Fantasy boss with many forms. But I had a lot of fun developing this really intricate stat of basically an eldritch horror that looks kind of mortal and humanoid to begin with. Amber's, I have a Twitch too. Yes, a Twitch. I have Into the Multiverse. If you want to check it out, that's where I run my games. We're a bit inconsistent from time to time. We were more inconsistent at a time, but we're just all over the place, different timelines and everything else. So it's hard to be as consistent as we want to be. But yes, you can head over there and give us a follow if you would like. Oh my gosh, so many things, so many messages. I gotta answer these faster. So 6 says, how do I get my creative juices flowing for campaigns? Any specific media, games, real stuff you like to take a lot of inspo from? Gosh, yeah, that's a really good thing. I think one thing is being constantly creative. Just make sure you never get rusty. So constantly creating, constantly jotting down any ideas I have. Make sure that I'm constantly working that muscle so that it doesn't ever get old and tired and stuff. But obviously, I'm always consuming media. Anime is great. I love to incorporate crazy anime shenanigans into my games. Big influences off the top of my head in anime. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I love it. I could talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure forever. I don't know if you've ever seen the anime Fooly Cooly or FLCL. Another just blew my mind. Watch the English version as well if you're an English speaker. It's such a good English dub. It's amazing. I actually prefer it. God, this is tough. I love a lot of like 12 episode kind of series. I think like Death Parade is a really cool one that really blew my mind. I loved it so much and just thought it was beautiful, gorgeous art style. I'm watching Jujutsu Kaisen at the moment, and I'm making a video on that soon, on how to incorporate elements of Jujutsu Kaisen. Skyrim is my comfort food video game. My partner introduced me to Dragon Age. I'm always consuming media. I'm always on YouTube, seeing what other people are making. I think Dungeon Dad is one of the biggest inspirations for me. When he talks about monsters, I'm like, damn, that's a cool idea, and it just sparks a whole bunch more of ideas for me. Seeing what other people are making often just gets me excited, and then it goes from there. So yeah, just constantly absorbing media, constantly writing down any ideas I have. Make sure that wheel is constantly turning. EG says, am I familiar with Scrabble City Combiners? No, I don't know what that is. You have to explain it to me. That sounds awesome. Do you use Scrabble somehow? That sounds cool. I want to see what that is. And Egg also says, are you going to make a book for your campaign for others to also play? That is a dream, and it has been the dream for many years. I have put together some bits and pieces, yeah. I've put together some things. Maybe in the future, if I get like a big audience here, and I know there is an audience that I can give it to, I might put together like a big Kickstarter for that. I have just mounds of notes. So many notebooks, virtually more than I have physically. Maps galore, like there's so much there that I could easily put it into a book. It's just waiting to have that time to do it, but definitely a future project for sure. Nomabo says, what's my favorite subclass in 5e? My favorite class is Paladin. My favorite subclass, Oh man, that's such a broad question. It just explodes outwards in loads of ways. I thought that the Echo Knight Fighter by Matthew Mercer was such a cool idea. That you have alternate versions of you that fight with you. That's a really cool subclass. But also just I like the Vengeance Paladin just because I just love the idea of hunting down one specific guy, like Taken or something, and just taking people out one by one, just doing butt tons of damage, and having this strict code. I just love Paladins so much. They're so good for roleplay. Thank you for the beautiful music. It's I will tell you now what it is. It is fantasy tavern music, copyright free tavern music. I just didn't want this thing to be taken off the show. I'll link it though after this goes up. I'll link the channel I found this on in the description and stuff. I forgot to do that in the manic of setting all this up, but I will be adding that in if you want to check it out for your own D&D games. Oh, I just clicked it by accident and shot back a bit. I did it again. Shot back to the start. Let me see. Okay, Six says, do I have any homebrew rules? Maybe even favorite homebrew rules? If not, are there just some things you like to keep in mind for other DMs that they might benefit from? Yes. I really enjoy, and I make sure my players are all on board with it first, but I really like permanent damage. I do it whenever someone goes into 0 HP, whenever they fall unconscious, or whenever they, when they start rolling death saves. I won't roll, on their turn, I'll get them to roll on a permanent damage table. I've got a bunch of custom ones that I make up. It's like just taken from all these other tables. And based on the severity of how much damage they did take, I might go on like a more extreme, a more extreme permanent damage table where losing a limb, for example, is more likely. I play it by ear, but that's one that I check with my players first if they're okay with that. And basically, the thing is in D&D, healing is crazy broken. You can get 1 HP, come back up, and you're fine. You can keep fighting. But that is my way of kind of like countering that a little bit, so that if you do go below 0, there's a chance, something bad has happened. You have taken enough damage to be on death's door, and I feel like 1 point of healing won't necessarily always help you there. There's going to be some sort of scar. You're going to miss a finger, lose some teeth, something like that. There's got to be something. So that's what that's one of my favorite go-tos. Elowin slower. Elowin. Beanie Evenin says, I just love hearing about people's characters. So many characters in this world. I think there's like 30, 40, 50 characters or players. I'll get onto some favorite NPCs soon, because when I go into the world, I think I might do that, because that's another rabbit hole that I could go down into. But I realize I'm just falling a little bit behind these questions, so I'm just going to catch up with these, and then we'll get into those questions on NPCs and stuff and characters in a minute. I also have a question that is waiting here in the hot seat. One of my patrons, Ike the Architect, couldn't make it here, so they sent me on their question that they wanted me to answer in live stream, so I'll also get to that because that ties in with NPCs that I've made and some of my favorites. Enote, I haven't had a question from Enote, so let's see what you say here. So these systems like Roll for Shoes with hardcore creativity for using skills are very fun. PBTA hacks. What is PBTA? My brain's not connecting those dots, but you'll probably figure it out in a minute. Often are pretty useful for that purpose, or maybe I just play them incorrectly. Roll for Shoes. I just love improv. I recommend to loads of people, there's a really fine line in terms of like prepping for DM sessions that you have to meet. We have to prepare enough so you know where things are going, but not too much that it becomes rigid in your mind because you're constantly trying to remember things that you were going to say or do. And so having that, when you learn that you have the ability to role play really well and improv really well, I think it's a wonderful place to be. because you can trust yourself to come up with these amazing things. This is where the best stuff comes from, is when you're improvising. As long as you know your characters and know what's going on in their mind, all of your NPCs, what's going on in their mind and what's happening in the world, you can very easily roleplay then and improvise on the fly. Roll for shoes. I just want to do that. I just want to have a very basic game where I just have a really basic setup and just play roll for shoes and see where the story goes. I love that. I often, when I would play with the beta questers, we would do these long sessions where we would play from like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Because we didn't often meet up. We'd meet up like once a month. I lived down south of Ireland and they all lived up in Dublin. So I'd travel up and we'd all meet up at one of our friends' houses or an Airbnb. And we would play for as long as we could, but often people would drop out and couldn't keep playing, so we'd have to stop the main game, but other people still wanted to play D&D. So I would have these spin-off games where I'd just get people to play as like cultists or Kuatoa, and they were just the most fun. I'd just make up an adventure on the fly. You've got like 6 HP. If you die, you die. That's it. And you just go for as long as you can with the cultists, going through some deadly dungeon, trying to do traps and things. One of my favorite scenarios is like 2 people made it to the end of this, and they made it to find this legendary artifact, a really overpowered artifact, and there was just this one old dude in there with a revolver, and they just ended up playing Russian roulette with this guy, and it was the most intense gameplay I've ever played in D&D, where basically he would spin the barrel every round, so you'd roll a d6 and I'd write a number down every time. It would be a different number every time, and if you got that number, you died, because your character just 6 HP, you were gonna die. And it was insane, and they killed the guy. One of them survived, got the artifact and escaped, and and he was then somewhere in the world with this all-powerful artifact. It was the best. It was great, and I love just spontaneous role playing like that. Let's see here. Mayantu, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Miantu says, having different campaigns in the same multiverse, but different timelines is so fun. I love it. Yeah, it's amazing. Going back in time is really fun too, and seeing how maybe things established. But you have to go back far enough so that it doesn't interact with too many of the NPCs, like in your current timeline that you're mainly playing through. Go back way back and you can come up with some rad stuff. Katiana says, I can't wait to see the Dreamer again. It's gonna be fun. It's got an army of children he's putting together. It says, any favorite moments in your campaigns? 14 years of playing D&D. I got favorite moments. Yeah, I just have to choose one off the top of my head. God, that's a really tough one. I'm going to be vague and just say, I think whenever players have surprised me and done something really cool, I know that's a really rubbish response, but I love it when players plan things together and coordinate attacks and stuff like that. One example I often use is these players were in a circus filled with vampires, and they end up fighting these vampires in a room. And one of the characters is a paladin, and he has the ability to manipulate water. His name's Rael. So he can manipulate holy water, technically. And another character could kind of manipulate ice based on his warlock patron, who's this ice dragon, one of the Phalords in the world. And so one of them wanted to turn water into spikes, and the other one to freeze them into stakes, and then they shot those at one of the vampires. And I was like, that is so cool, and I love it when my brain just starts whirring with trying to figure out how I can mechanically make that work. So because it was stakes, so vampires traditionally hate stakes, it was holy water, and it was like a magical attack as well. So it was just such a cool thing. So I just had them roll the damage for like a divine smite or whatever. Can't remember what the damage was, and then multiply it by 4. I just said go and do 4 times damage. They just obliterated these vampires, and just moments like that are just so cool. Yeah. moments when my players are super cool, and I try to make them feel as cool as I can, but often also make them feel, you know, vulnerable and scared and terrified. That's always important too, that they know their place, but not in a bad way. Okay, I might try to get to some more of those soon, but I'm getting overwhelmed by the questions coming in. So I'll try to get to people who haven't asked questions as much. So Marzipansa says, "Oh my God, yes, Pina, that's an amazing question." Okay, everyone says it's an amazing question. I really have to get back and answer that properly. I'll be thinking about it and I'll get back to that. So do remind me in a bit. Mianthu says, "Have I ever been a player myself, and do I have a favorite character, or do I have a favorite NPC I've really enjoyed playing?" Off the top of my head, I'll get to NPCs later. I will get to NPCs later, but I have been players many times, but not many times. So let me think. So I often play kind of asshole characters, often who are stuck up and can be fixed. That's my favorite kind of character to play. One of my favorite characters that I have played is a cat. So he was a prince who was hideous to everyone, and he was so good at everything he did. He was a prodigy. Loved though to like sleep around, of course. But he was an awful person. But he ended up sleeping with the daughter of a hag, and basically he broke her heart. She and said that he'd meet her, whatever. He told her all these awful things, and she ended up at a very dark end. And so the hag approached him and turned him into a cat, because she believed a cat is the most hideous thing in the world. Externally, they're these beautiful creatures, but internally, they are rotten to the core. Often, if you smelt cat breath, that's kind of where the inspiration came from. And so he's been turned into a cat. So he's a monk cat, and he had like crazy high dexterity, and he did like tons of damage, but he had like no HP. He had like a quarter or half his usual HP because he was a cat. He was a tiny creature. So it's just super busted glass cannon, and I loved him. And he had retainers who would carry him around on a pillow, and he would only get his claws dirty if he needed to. But when he did a lot of damage. And that was kind of my way of like stopping him, you know, just killing everyone really easily, is I would just have him be really lazy and not very competent. Yeah, his name was Iago, based on my favorite villain of all time from Othello, one of my I think it is my favorite Shakespeare play. One Night Gaming says, define permanent damage, just to encourage using the higher level healing. Oh, sorry, just to encourage using the higher level healing. Yeah, so some permanent damage, usually I'll leave permanent damage be healed over time with like, you know, regeneration or something like that. For my permanent damage, I've got tables. It can be anything from missing teeth to fingernails to like maybe some internal bleeding. It can range a lot, and the severity of it for me, it ranges. I like to have it range in, sorry, I keep saying range. So lesser stuff will heal over time with either just a little bit of magical healing. It'll heal with a long rest. It might heal in a week, or it could be healed by, you know, like you said, greater healing spells like regeneration or remove curse, or, you know, greater restoration or something like that. But if something really severe has happened, I feel like also sometimes there's less impact to if it's something that can just be healed with magical healing. So if there's something very dire, I might have it be like a reduction to one of their base stats until they get the proper rest. Or if there's a certain story hook that it could be like a whole other story hook where they have to go to a hag or something like that to get it recovered, or need a particular artifact to heal it. Very like in the new D&D movie, where basically you've got the special dagger, and if you're killed with that dagger, you can't be revived unless you have this special relic. I don't like to be very punishing, but it's nice to have a bit of weight and just like not have people come up perfectly fine after going down with down to 0. I like there to be some weight to falling to 0 hit points. And other times as well, it could just be that, like, you know, they might carry on their death saves. That's something I want to try doing as well, like even just in combat. But again, that's all stuff that you need to check with your players, see if they're comfortable with that or not. Also, hi, yes, hi when not gaming. Early morning stream for my time zone. Yeah, I don't know what sweet spot to get here that suits both me, so I'm not up till like midnight and disturbing my neighbors, and also getting it right for everyone else, because I know a lot of you are in the States. And yeah, trying to find that balance is tough, and I'll try to work on that in the future. Oh my god, there's so many comments. Okay. Nomabo, how long have I been playing TTRPGs? TTRPGs, actually, I used to make my own TTRPGs before I knew D&D or anything else existed, which was back when I was like, I don't know, 12. Even before that, I was making games for my siblings. I've always loved the idea of making games, and even way back when I was like 9 or something, when my family and I were traveling around the world, on big car journeys, we all had like little stuffed animal teddies and stuff, my brothers and I have this memory, you know, where I would have the little teddy on the car door when we're sitting in the back, and I would give my brothers like a list of little buttons they could press if they were playing a video game, so if they wanted, or they would just say the commands. So I would be moving them along, and if an obstacle was coming in, they could say jump to have them jump over it, or attack if a monster came up. So like ever since I was really, really small, I've been inventing games and telling stories. Very quickly as well, a little diverging rant or point. So I've been, like, my first experience with like role playing, I think came around when I was maybe 4 or 5 and stuff, when I would go and visit my cousins in England, or they would come to visit us, and their dad used to tell us bedtime stories, and he would take the stories from the Dark Tower series, typically the gunslinger. He would call them the gunslinger stories. So one of us got to be the gunslinger in the story, and then everyone else got to choose what character they were as well and what power they had. And he would, every night, you know, he would add to the story, and we'd each get a different moment in the big tale, where we got to do things. He just told the story. There was no interacting from our point, but we got to be the character in the story, and it was the coolest thing ever. But over time, as like, you know, he probably got tired of that. He wanted to go hang out with the adults every night. So, you know, slowly he would stop telling them. And I remember at one point I took over when we were camping. I was like, how about I tell a gunslinger story? We're really young. I don't know what age now. But I suggested that, and I was like, hey, what if you all can also interact with the story? So I would tell these stories to my cousins and my siblings, and when a part came in to the story where they could maybe interact with, I would ask them, what would your character do here? And that was my very first experience of role-playing games. And it's always been there since I was really, really young. So yeah, that's so many years is my answer. Sadius, you said Asidus, is that right? I hope that's right. You said you mentioned Echo Knight earlier. Do you have any tips for how to implement the subclass in a lore-friendly way to a non-Matt Mercer world, or general tips for incorporating complex classes to your world? Yeah, I do it all the time. I don't like using the typical lore for things. I like to flip them on their head slightly, mainly because my players they know all the books inside out. More hardcore players. They know all the monsters, they know all the lore, so it's nice to flip things on the head sometimes. For Echo Knight, if you don't want to go with like multiversal kind of stuff, like there being many instances and possibilities of things that could have happened in your world, that's what I would do with Echo Knight. That's my first instinct, is like, there is a multiverse, other parts of you briefly fall through. Maybe you are naturally gifted in that way. Maybe you're connected to all your other selves, and that could be a really interesting thing to go down with your characters. Like, as your character, gains more levels, they gain more ability to see into other realities and other possibilities, and that could be a wild journey to go down. I would focus them around your players and their own backstories, and make it feel personal to their character. And then from that, the lore can grow. So if someone else becomes, say, an Echo Knight in another campaign or something, you have a base lore to draw from, but now you can start establishing it and how it influences other people in the world. So for example, if one of your characters is an Echo Knight, and now they are very unique because they have this unique ability that connects them to every other iteration of them throughout infinite possibilities, infinite realities. But maybe in the future they discover that they're not the only one. That could be a really cool villain or something to introduce someone else who can do that. Someone who knows what the party's been up to because he can now communicate with all these other versions of himself. And for that campaign alone, it could be really cool just for your character, for that character. But then maybe if you go into another campaign, you've established now that there's two people who are one of these people who are connected to the multiverse. So maybe more and more of those people start popping up, and anyone who wants to be an Echo Knight can also be one of those people. The main thing I would base it off of, if it's a very out there subclass, I would base it solely around the character who's taken up that subclass and maybe make it unique to them. And then they can discover more people like them in the future. But it just makes your characters feel a bit more special. Your players feel a bit more unique and main character-y. That would be my suggestion. One Night Gaming says, a born sorcerer maybe... Hello! Again, apologies for dog. She might be getting a bit jealous that I'm talking to the computer and not her. A born sorcerer maybe who didn't cultivate their powers in a way, maybe... That's also true, yeah. Connecting it back to other classes is a cool thing too, like very much like evolution or something. Certain classes have evolved that way. Sorcerers are great for that. Tieflings are really cool too. In my world, tieflings aren't always born from like a devil or demon and stuff or some ritual. They are mutants. Tieflings are mutants in my world. So that can be like anyone who's been exposed to like a large amount of energy, or their parent maybe was exposed to energy, like radiation. I see magic as like radiation at times, especially when it's unstable. And so for me, tieflings are kind of like these strange mutants who have been altered and tweaked by either arcane magic or divine magic and all that kind of stuff. So that's one way I do it. Roll! That was us, Shahil. It's us. Okay, so that's a really old comment. That was way back. Oh my god, I'm way back in these questions. Might skip ahead very quickly. Something like that could be. Okay, wait, what's happening here? It says it's us, real Shahil. So it just says something like that could probably work. One of my players switched to Echo Knight. Okay, yeah, so it's Echo Knight thing. Even it says, with the permanent damage, was there ever a moment you felt bad for the player? I feel bad if you can tell the player has taken it badly. One of my players, again, I mentioned Shahil, he lost his leg. And there was a moment where I wasn't sure if the player was taking it okay, because their character took it very badly, obviously, because it was a very traumatic event for them. But I had to check with the player, like, if they're okay with this. They still don't have a leg, and it's really fun that they don't have a leg now, and they've found all these other ways to work around that missing leg, and I think that's so cool. If I was a player, I would love losing a limb or something like that, because it's something now you always have to consider. I wouldn't want it to grow back because it's a part of your character now. And I love the journey of characters, how they change physically, emotionally, everything else. As long as the player's okay, I'm okay. But yeah, that's a good question. Meki lost his hand to Gelatinous Cube because he was stupid. Again, I felt a little bad for that, but it was a funny moment too, so that was okay. Reed Galway says, I am struggling with conflicting player choices and the potential of party splits within my campaign. Oh, that's a good question. Do you have any advice to how to handle and mitigate these types of situations? It's the beta quest, as I mentioned, my 7-year campaign that's been going on for forever, that has been ongoing since day one. They can fell gods, they can destroy planets, the sentient planets. They can kill any creature I throw at them. But when it comes to making a decision to go left or right, that's the session over. That is what the rest of the session will be. And it can be tiring too if you don't want that to be happening. But in-game conflict, as long as the players themselves aren't getting mad at each other, I think it's fun. And as long as, because I think it's healthy to have that that dynamic. I would embrace it. Don't feed into it too much. Let, throw each side a bone every now and again. So, for example, say they don't like killing creatures. One half doesn't like killing as many people, others half do. Try to play into both sides. So, time and time again. So, every now and then, put a situation in there. Killing is the only option. And that makes a really fun dynamic. Now, the people who don't like killing all of a sudden have to kill, and they're kind of like, okay, but we need to do this if we want to survive. And it's this very interesting moral dilemma, and the other people are going to have a blast killing. But then also, in other situations, play into the other side, where it is going to be really bad if they kill, say, a bunch of these innocent people. Say they're in a cave, a bunch of kobolds, for example. Start giving the kobolds names. Establish that those kobolds have a society there. If you watch my Cookie Monster video, I give all the goblins names. They're all kind of they're a society. Some people have crushes on other ones. When one of them dies, have them like yell out the other person's name, saying like, "Oh, we were meant to go to Paris together." And now all of a sudden the players who like killing are kind of feeling a bit like, oh, okay, maybe I kind of get this. Maybe we shouldn't kill everyone. Maybe we should talk to people now and then. Playing to both sides. Go back and forth, and sometimes maybe they'll find a middle ground themselves. But don't discourage it either. I think that can add to some of the more interesting parts. Most fun things come from that in D&D. When Night Gaming says, so by permanent damage, do you mean in the sense that they can't ever heal it? In the sense, no, permanent damage, no, you can totally heal it. There's literally tables out there that will say, so if you look at, I think it's Xanathar's Guide to Everything Else, they have an expanded permanent damage table or permanent injury table. And when I say permanent, it's semi-permanent. It's more like an injuries table that I use. I wouldn't punish people if they find a way to heal it. I would just let them heal it. But maybe for higher levels, I think, because there's so many high level spells that they can use all the time, I think just let them use the spell. It's using up a resource. It's fine. But I just add a bit of weight. When someone goes down, I roll on this table, and whatever they get, they get. And it totally depends on what's on the table. Look at that, for example, though, the Xanathar's expanded guide to everything else or something like that. They've got a really good example of things. But even in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there's a permanent damage table, or there's a damage table. It varies. It varies so much. So you have a hard time as a DM in One Night Gaming to add things that aren't flexible normally. But I think it's just because, personally, I've had a hard time when my DM adds things that aren't flexible normally. But I think it's just because he does it a little too. Wait, sorry, I read that wrong. Because he does it a little too often. Sorry, I just didn't read the next line. A little too often, and I play a half-caster. It's tough, yeah, when the DMs aren't flexible on things. I think it's because instinctively as a player, you kind of want to go against it. It's tricky. Yeah, I always will encourage my players, if they find a way to do something, I will let them do that. I don't want to be too much of a stickler, because in the end of the day, if it's something that makes the game unfun, don't do it. The whole point of playing D&D is to have fun. Anyway, gotta go. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for stopping by. That is such a cute way to get into roleplay. I can't remember what that was referring to. Awesome answers, thank you kindly. Blue, something to add. Yes, something to add. Wiz, losing a head. Really, yeah. So Marzipan's character stuck their head inside an evil skull, and their head got disintegrated. It's just one of those things where it's very obvious they're going to die. They did it anyway, and I'm like, okay, well, they're dead. I mean, but they brought them back. It's okay. But make sure you know your players before just getting rid of their head. I'm excited to see the one day when Wiz doesn't run into danger. Yes, me too. Yeah, that'd be a Christmas miracle. Marzipan says truly. Somehow, trouble found her. Beat up kids. Okay, cool. Beanie even says my favorite encounter. That's a really tricky one. I finally caught up with the comments as well. That's cool. So do continue sending in questions. I finally caught up with the chat. So my favorite encounter, one of the coolest things that I've done. They're often ones that involve a lot of role play. So, I've had so many. Okay, when my players fought a boat. Okay, so the setup for this is again in beta questers. They're over level 20 at this stage. They're gone into an illithid kingdom, massive society that's the size of a country. It goes on forever. It showed up all of a sudden one day out of nowhere. So they've gone in there to look for help in a giant war. They want the Illithids to band with them. So they've joined the Illithids, and they want to chat with them. But the Illithids send them into an arena to see if people who are not mutated and enhanced in the Illithid fashion, where they take in creatures and they add other limbs and make them all these strange abominations, these kind of psychic creatures. They want to see if these, artificial creatures can beat the party who aren't as artificial. They're just through skill and their own merit, they've reached these high levels. So they wanted to see if they're worthy of their power to begin with. So there's a big arena, big coliseum, and they fight 3 creatures. One is a psychic, one is like a mutant, and the other is a person with swords for hands. So for years though, I've been talking about Kingdom Hearts to my players, and I showed them this one video where it sums up Kingdom Hearts in 30 minutes, and they keep saying how every boss battle ends up turning into a boat. And our story has been played for so long, it's become so convoluted. I constantly say it's very similar to Kingdom Hearts. And one of my players keeps asking me, he's like, when are we fighting the boat? Like, when's the big boss going to turn into a boat? And it was going on for years where they kept asking me that. And during this Colosseum battle, when they finally killed the 3 monsters, they all merged together, and a giant ship that had been hanging on chains above them the whole time falls down, and the creatures start to mold over the ship. And they end up fighting this gargantuan boat. And my players' reactions to that, like, they thought the battle was over, and there's now the second form. It was so like Final Fantasy, so like Kingdom Heartsy, very anime, and it was just the funniest thing ever. The boat could shoot laser eyes, and it was wild. It was one of the best encounters ever. They got to use all their abilities. One of them, like, very rarely they go down. A few of them I think went down. There was a cool moment even before the boat became sentient, where, and again, on the end of the boat, there was obviously just like a little torso of one of, like, an amalgamation of all the other 3 creatures. Very Final Fantasy, so there's a little torso on the end of the big boat. And so, before they even fought the boat, they released the boat and tried to crush the players with the boat. And there was an epic moment when one of my players rolled like the biggest strength check ever to catch the boat. He's this big bulky robot, and he caught like a several 100-ton boat with his 2 hands, and it was such a cool moment. And he saved everyone else who was below it. It was so cool. I think they got a natural 20 on the roll as well. And I love moments like that. When someone gets a natural 20, make them feel cool, make them feel epic. That's what it's all about. Excellent question. I like that one. Amber says the cute way to get into roleplay was back when you were talking about telling stories as a kid and having siblings. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's good times. A boat, Nani. Scorptech says, that's one thing I've really enjoyed in my limited experience. The drawbacks and imperfections in characters make things so unique. Yeah. Same for rolling for stats. Yeah. So rolling for stats is a rough one because it can go either way. You can have like everyone else roll really well, and then maybe one player doesn't roll as well. I think that could be tough. There's a few other ways to mitigate that. Maybe even just get them to roll again so they don't feel as left out as everyone else. Or alternatively, everyone else rolls badly. One person has perfect stats, and that could be a bit crummy at times. Yeah, I love having imperfections in characters. That's just what makes them interesting. If they're good at everything, they're boring. Why do they need to be doing anything? If they succeed in everything, where's the story? You also say, Scorptech, I almost want my characters to suck at something to add a layer of spice. Yeah, often I will min-max for that reason. It's nice to get the bonuses and be really good at certain things. But I permanently, if I'm doing point buy, will make a few stats like 8. So that I have that major weakness, so I can't do everything. And that's the beauty of D&D, is because your party, everyone fills in each other's weaknesses, which is wonderful too, and it gives everyone else a time to shine if everyone has a weakness that someone else can cover. Seda says, what's the wildest way a player has surprised you? One of them wanted to be turned into a knife. So I think that was the coolest thing. One of my players, he has now become a legendary weapon or artifact in my world. He used to be just a regular guy. First thing he did in one of our games was there was a gelatinous cube at the bottom of this pit. No one had to go fight it, but he wanted to go fight it. So he thought if he set himself on fire and jumped down into it, it would do a little bit extra damage to the gelatinous cube. So he set himself on fire. He was level 1, and he was level 0 at this stage. So he did that. He set himself on fire, jumped into the gelatinous cube, went down to 0 immediately. He has no skin now. I each gave them like a legendary item. He had a rat that if the rat died, it kills whoever killed it. Basically, he plays a rat deck in Magic the Gathering. I give them all personal items to them. They're basically, in the beta questers, are all playing themselves. So he was playing himself. And so I give them a little artifacts that kind of tied into stuff that they do. So his rat deck in Magic the Gathering, which all these rats have an ability called Death Touch. So if you kill them, the creature that killed them also dies. So he had a pet rat. If it dies, it kills whatever killed him. So he went in with the rat. Rat died, the gelatinous cube died, he came out with no skin, he covered himself later in like fish skin and onions, like give himself some sort of skin. Later on, well, fast forward, that party is now in the cyberpunk world. He has gotten all these skin enhancements, so he now has silver skin, which can kind of turn invisible. Skip forward again, he's been captured by an eldritch horror. He has now become and been modified and enhanced in different ways. He's become now liquid silver, so he's like a mercury man who can change his shape into anyone he wants, kind of like a changeling. So he's now liquid metal. There comes a point, he hops in and out of games, so he's not too attached to his character, and there came a point where the party had met this legendary blacksmith. They're all getting amazing items from this guy, and he approached the blacksmith and he said, I want you to turn me into a dagger. The blacksmith was like, I'm not going to turn you into a dagger. And he's like, I need you to turn me into a dagger. You are the best blacksmith in the entire world. Look at me. I am living metal. Turn me into a dagger. Like he was just so adamant. And I was like, I had to break character and be like, are you sure you just want to be a dagger now for the rest of the game? And he's like, yeah, cool. And so then the guy, he makes up the dagger and he shapes it and forges it. And he's now a dagger that can talk. I had to allow him to talk. And after all that, I kind of described what the dagger looks like. I was like, it's very sleek design, very simple. And he's so disappointed. He's like, you are the best blacksmith in the world, and you made me look like just a regular dagger. He's just like so mad. But that was a point where that player is one of the best players for throwing curveballs at me. Like every session he joins, he's I don't know what to expect, and it's just the best time ever. So he's now a legendary artifact in the world. If you pick him up, he can potentially take over your mind and become you and like take you over and take over your whole body. But this is my version of the Sword of Cass in the world of Gostar. It's this ultimate dagger that can cut through anything. Good question. Okay. So, the player who played that, he's called Edward, very good friend of mine, a friend from college actually. Really great guy. Where is he in Europe now? Is it Denmark or Norway? I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. Yes, good question. 6 more characters. Let me see if there's another question. Marzipan says, I'd love to know, was there ever a time your players did something incredibly unexpected that made you replan? Replanning is interesting. I mean, I'm always replanning. Whenever they do something, I'm trying to improvise what they do. But a big turnaround. Yeah, there's definitely been some. I just got to think. Definitely. I think at one stage, is a really simple one that comes off the top of my head. My players were heading to a town. I checked with them that they were going to this one town, planned out the town and everything else. And they're like, will we not go to the town actually? Will we just go this way instead? And I was like, it's like a totally different biome, totally different area. It's like, oh my God, what? I'll have to think about that and I'll get back to you. Remind me later and I'll see if I've thought of something. I'll have that marinating in the back of marinating. I have that processing in the back of my mind. What's my least favorite thing about 5e? Disadvantage and advantage, actually, I think is a bit... it's great, it's really good for getting into D&D. But I've come from 4e where there's like... you've got like +1s and +2s or... +5s or -2s or -5s based on cover and all this kind of stuff. And I really enjoyed that. This music's getting a bit crazy, so I'm just going to bring it back to the start. I miss that a little bit. Advantage can feel a bit rigid at times, so that's something I miss. But then again, I still use advantage because I think it's fun. But I'll still also use the +2s and +1s for other things. If I think something's more specifically would only just give a +1, or I don't think if a character has advantage, for example, I know that they don't have stats high enough to pass the check. With the advantage, I might give them a +2 or +3 instead, based on the circumstance. Say they do a really cool thing where they've set up a really cool attack that definitely deserves advantage to help them out, just to make sure that the cool thing happens. I might give them +2 instead. Say even something simple like they jump off a cliff down onto someone. I might say, instead of giving them advantage, I might actually say either give them disadvantage on the attack and allow them to add more damage, like maybe give them a +5 to the damage because of the momentum they've dropped. Or, they can add the fall damage to the damage, but maybe they take a little bit. Stuff like that. Again, D&D is such a flexible putty in my own mind that I just manipulate it and tweak it as I like. But advantage is one of those static ones. If you just play by advantage and disadvantage, I think it can be a little static. But I do think the system is so based around it that it's hard to get rid of it. I wouldn't get rid of it. I would just maybe do that every now and then. And again, XP Level 3 made a video recently where he covered that at one point about a rogue. This DM had gotten rid of advantage and disadvantage, but gives +2s, which can stack. But then the rogue gets 1 -2. And so because he has like technically a disadvantage, he can't get a sneak attack anymore, even though he has like +8 or +10 of these other bonuses. So that's just that. Yeah, I would have just said in that situation you can just get sneak attack anyway. But yeah. I love flaws. It's not super fun when characters just are really good at everything they do. Yeah, it's very boring. Rigo always says, left for 5 minutes and came back, and there was a moment before the boat became sentient. This is the type of thing that makes me love Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, when people start fighting boats or freaking brains become blank there. Cookie monsters, all that kind of stuff. I love that kind of stuff. Oh, to be a knife, yes. So Kathiana says, I must leave. My hour of work is over. It's over. Good luck, Gabe. Hope the stream goes well. Remember to talk about NPCs. I will. I'm so sorry you didn't get to see the NPCs, but come back to this video and watch it, and I'll cover the NPCs. I'll definitely cover those very soon, because I've been chatting for ages about other things and avoiding the NPCs. So I'll get onto that very soon. I'll just get to the bottom of these messages, and I'll answer some questions on NPCs. Marsman has to go too, but thank you so much, both of you, for coming. Also, Novazan. I've never said that out loud. Novazan, thank you so much for going. Hello, thank you so much for story time, for coming for the story time. I see Beanie Evans says, you have come just in time. Denmark mentioned. I actually don't think it's Denmark. I think it's... Fuck. I'm going to be kicking myself. It's one of those really nice towns. Not that Denmark's not nice. It's just... Oh, man. I don't know. Maybe it is Denmark. I might be wrong. Actually, in Denmark is the word for dice wobble rocks. That's how I'll know. I know whatever language they speak. That's the word for dice. Is wobble rocks. Okay. Beanie Evans says, have you personally played in a game where you maybe dislike the DM's homebrew rule? I've had games where I dislike the DM, unfortunately. I don't think I've had many DMs who've got homebrew rules that I don't like. I was scared with a homebrew rule once that you actually used, which was if you roll a 1 and attack, you do damage to yourself instead. And I just got a series of those and nearly killed myself. And you gotta respect the DM though. They got rules that they use, you gotta respect them. Unless everyone else disagrees, then you can maybe talk to the DM about it. But that was scary. But it was a cool rule, so it was perfect for that game, I thought. If I was to rule it, I might be do like a little less, maybe half the damage or something like that, but each to their own. That's how you ruled it, and I had a blast, I loved it. But I've had DMs who, one DM put me in freaking prison for 2 hours and didn't allow any of the characters to get to me. I didn't do anything bad. This was an Adventures League as well. This was at a convention where we did like an epic adventure. So everyone was playing in the same adventure at the same time on different tables. And I had, I paid money to be there and everything. And I think I'd figured out basically the story. I went invisible and tried to, assassinate someone I thought was an assassin. And I think I maybe got it right or something like that. But it came across bad anyway. Somehow the guards saw me. No, I went invisible. I attacked the guy. Somehow they survived anyway, or they got away, or they saw me no matter how high I rolled on the check. And I got surrounded by guards. I went invisible again. I got really high in the stealth, but somehow they saw me again. And they caught me. They put me in prison, and then I was in the prison for the next 2 hours of the game. And anytime the players try to go there to go talk to the guards or whatever, he would just add more guards that would come out of doors and stuff. And it was really, really crappy. It was a really bad time. And it did feel like I was just put in a timeout for 2 hours, which I just didn't like it. And they're not a great DM anyway. They also don't use maps. So everything is theater of the mind, which is very convenient. Oh, that was the other thing. The DM started roll. They always roll on the table. Every time they play the game, they're very proud to say they roll all their dice in front of the players. When I turned invisible and stuff, and people were making perception checks or attacks against me, he started rolling behind his hand and telling me, like, before he even got to read the dice, he was telling me they hit. And I was like, oh man, that's so bad. railroading's the worst. But anyway, he's also theater of the mind, so like, you know, very conveniently things will be there that were never there. Or there's a you know, I might say like, can I jump off this thing? And he's like, yeah, sure, you can jump off. Oh, you take however many falling damage. I'm like, wait, you didn't explain to me that it was a 40-foot drop. You just said it was like a ledge. Things like that. Bit tough. But anyway. Amber says, my players force my monsters to roll at disadvantage, like Silvery Barbs and a rune from the Rune Fighter, but still jaw dropped when I rolled a nat 20, which turns out its weapon is Warp. Oh, that's cool. That's, Warp weapon as well. That's so cool. Nice moment. 150 points! Oh my goodness, that's cool. I mean, it's kind of nice sometimes, the DM, where you're like, haha, I got one in against the team. But not that the DM is ever meant to be, you know, fighting against the players, but it is sometimes nice where you can give the players a little scare. They're not, you know, outright punished in any negative way, but they get a scare. Okay, let me go over here. No, it says, what's my favorite item you've given to players, homebrew or official content? Favorite item has to be... Every time my brain goes blank. That's a really tricky one. It's often weapons that or items that I see people use really creatively as well. I've made some interesting weapons. I think one cool weapon that I'm proud of was this sword that levels up with one of the players. It's this relic that belongs to their god, and it gives them powers as they level up. So those kind of things are cool. I'm really proud of those kind of things. Item that I've given to my players. I can't answer that, but I have, for games, something I really like to do is I get my players to just choose any item they want. They can make it up. It doesn't have to be an item that exists. They can make up what the item does. I make stats for it, but the more powerful the item is, the more bigger the like negative effects are. So one of my players once, he wanted lightning bolts, like that he could throw at people, like physical lightning. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. You can do a lot of damage with lightning, but they're super unstable. It's like carrying a bunch of dynamite in your bag. So anytime you fall over, or anytime you start running a lot, you've got to make like dexterity checks or whatever, so the lightning doesn't explode. That was a fun one. I also give one of my players a massive vat of paralyzing poison, which is a wild one, and then he ended up dropping it and spilling it on one of the players, and they were paralyzed for the rest of the fight. No, that was kind of fun. You shot yourself for doing the question, yes. You'll hunt down the DM that did that to me. Thank you. I left the games. When we'd book games for those things, I had to start asking if I couldn't be paired up with them, because I didn't think they liked me very much. I don't know why, but maybe I'm an awful person. Say this, what are some ways you keep combat fresh and exciting? Biggest thing I would say for me is treat combat encounters like puzzles. Always try to figure out how you can make it kind of a puzzle. And it doesn't have to be like necessarily like a thinky, there's one answer, or like a riddle or whatever. I would say like add some other dynamic thing to it. I always ask myself, how can I make this more dynamic? So it's not just a beat 'em up thing. It could be hidden abilities that the monster learns, or different stages the monster learns. I love the bloody condition from 4E, which is where a creature gets to half health. Something else happens to have a bloody attack that they use. So things like that. If a creature gets bloodied, maybe they get a whole bunch of new abilities or something. I like that a bit, that thing. But then having things in like innocent civilians around the place. Now the players could easily, bash this creature easily if it was just a one-on-one fight, but now all of a sudden there's civilians at risk, and there's all these minions going off and killing other civilians. Those are my favorite thing, when there's a second element, a second puzzle. It could also be a role-play puzzle. So for example, this thing is way too strong for your players to be fighting, and they have to just survive and talk to this person long enough so that they can end the fight. Stuff like that. I always try to add like something else to the fight than just it being a fight. Also, though, Dungeon Dad is amazing for his homebrew monsters that he takes from other editions. If you want to come up with like really fresh monsters, and they often give me lots of fresh ideas. So that's my advice for that. Ike the Architect, hello, you made it. You just said, are there any mythos from our works that inspire you when writing for D&D? Are there any mythos? Mythos as in like the myths and legends. I mean, this is a huge thing for Gostar. The whole thing about Gostar, I might hop over there very soon if you'd like to see the map of Gostar. A lot of influence, I take lots of influence from myths and legends from our own world, because I've established early on that our world, this world that we're living in, is connected to the D&D world, because so many of my players in the Beta Questers game, they play themselves. They are themselves from this world that have ended up in this other world. And so we've established that, and what happens is basically Gostar bleeds into our world. So every legend about werewolves, things from myth and legends, they all come from Gostar. So I have named characters. One of my characters, one of the Fey Lords, Tyr, he's a white dragon, straight from Norse mythology. He's also missing an arm, and he has similar echoes from those legends. And I like to change legends a lot. I like to take a little inspiration from them, because I love the idea that by the time the story arrives in our world, it's been changed so much, and it's existed for so long that the story has changed to the one that we know today. But the original story is something completely else. It's completely different, but there's similarities in there. Let's keep going. Demu Sword. Yes, Demu Sword is the artifact I mentioned. Yang. Hold on. Sorry. Yang Jian Zhao. Is that right? Yang Jian Zhao. I hope that's pronounced right. You said, hi, new here. Are you an artist for cleanup on Isle Goblin? I am an artist, yes. And I do all my assets and everything myself here. For cleanup, I assume that is a joke, but you're talking, I wasn't sure. Immediately my brain went to animation, like clean up things in animation. Is that an actual thing? Clean up an Isle Goblin? Is that an actual show? I'd love to know, but I am an artist. I'm a graphic designer by trade. I'm also a muralist. I paint giant murals on the sides of buildings. I do logos, poster designs, everything for brands and communities to help like enrich their brand identity and all that kind of stuff. So that's my job. I do all that kind of stuff. I've got a website if you want to check it out. It's Cascando Artwork. You look that up and it'll come up. But yeah, I'm a graphic designer, muralist, everything else. You say, oh no, just realized I asked this question on a Q&A. Please don't answer. No, it's perfectly fine. You're perfectly fine. Don't feel embarrassed at all. I just read it confused, but I really appreciate the comment. So it is a joke. Okay, cool. Yes, I'm an artist, and I often clean up goblins. Yes, I have to wipe their asses. My little Blue, my dog, she's a bit of a goblin. So yes. Don't feel embarrassed. Please don't. Thank you so much for your comment. Love adding terrain to encounters. I also love adding terrain. It's a really fresh way to keep things, a great way to keep things fresh. I've got a new short for another D&D terrain coming out soon. I'm going to get to my world now because I've come to the bottom of the comments again. What's my favorite part of world building? I'm going to just hop over to the map and I'll show you and I'll explain my NPCs, my world building, all those kind of methods over there. So would you like to go check that out? Let's see if I can swap us over to maps. Okay, so stay with me. I'm gonna swipe on over. Aha! It has worked, I hope. This is the world of Gostar. This is my map of the world. I've done all this on Wonderdraft. My favorite maps to use are Wonderdraft and Dungeon Draft. Another question came in there. What's the coolest mural I've made? this mural. Go check out my website and have a look and see what you think. But one of my favorite ones is a recent one I did for a burger joint called Smash Burger. It's a massive mural that stretches on for several meters. And it tells a story of an old Irish legend of these two pig farmers that are shapeshifters. And they had this big battle where they battled as like birds of prey for 1 year, then they battled as sea creatures for another year, and then they battled as like cows or beasts or something on land for another year, then they battled as insects. And so this battle that takes place across the whole span of the wall also then takes in famous aspects from the history of that area as well. So I'm really proud of the mural. I think it's really, really cool. And I love mythology, and I love trying to incorporate mythology into my works. So that, I would say. Okay, let me just top up my water here before I start talking about my world and my NPCs. And then I think I will wrap up the stream after we've been streaming for what? About an hour and a half. Okay, so we got over half an hour left. So I'll wrap it up in 2 hours at the 2 hour mark. But I'll try to cover this world of my NPCs now here. So it's gonna be one of my favorite cool world maps. Oh wow. Gotta be the coolest world map ever. Oh, thank you very much. So yeah, let me explain. This is Gostar. And this is, my players call it the Ballsack world. It is a teardrop world. This is it flattened out. So basically when you flatten out like a 2D map, this is what it looks like. But technically it is a Ballsack world. I keep saying Ballsack, I'm just trained to say Ballsack world. But basically it's a world that drips from the elemental chaos. So let me just, let me see if I can play a little. I don't have the video here. I might very quickly, if it lets me, I'm gonna set up a very quick short for you to play, so you can get a summary of the world before I go into it. So let me just do that real quick. And I have to add the media source. It's a video I've made, and I'm just gonna set that up. So bear with me as I get this ready, and I'll play it for you all. Okay, so add source, browse files, where's my video? Here it is, perfect, History of Gostar. So, there we go. So, I'm gonna swap over. I'll be right back, but just have a listen to this. Let me know what you think, and then I'll continue to explain the world. So, let me mute myself.
Gostar, the God's Tier. The world of Gostar drips from the elemental chaos like a teardrop. And the further from the chaos that you travel, the more the world cools, stabilizes, and becomes livable. The gods created this world as a sanctuary, originally for themselves to escape the madness that is the chaos. But as they filled it with wonders, it became home to so much more. Gaia, the leader of all the gods, who molded this world, separated it into 6 distinct realms: Jotunheim, the Vale, Olympus, Limbo, Diu, and Kini. Each of which she left to her children, the 6 dragons of Gostar, known as the Fey Lords, to protect. Lucifer, the oldest of the siblings, claimed Diu, the fiery land full of rare treasure, gemstones, and gold. Tyr, the white dragon, claimed the frosty mountainous realm of Jotunheim, building impregnable fortresses to encircle his own castle, built into the biggest glacier he could find. Cain took over the stormy realm of Olympus and helped erect entire cities into the skies. Abel governed Limbo, a land warped by millennia of psychic wars. Lilith took over the veil and tended to the delicate ecosystems of the magical and natural world. And then finally, Titus, the runt of the litter, was left Guinea, a wasteland of undead, monsters, and eldritch horrors, a land where few humanoids can be found, and any you do meet will not survive long. The dragons eventually warred, like all rulers do. Abel fell to Cain, Tyr was mortally wounded, and those that survived were hated by mortals for the destruction they wrought. The Fey Lords were pushed back into the fringes of society and were eventually lost to the fog of legends and time. But that does not stop them from interfering with mortals' plans, for the threads of fate weave ever so tightly on our heroes who stand and fight the chaos that threatens to consume.
Okay, so that is that. Let me just see if I can put back on this music. You can hear me again, okay? There we go. Music again. So that's the World of Godstar. It's a little short I made for that I play on my streams and stuff. So hopefully that makes more sense with the ballsack world, like the teardrop worlds. The art there of the Dreamer and the World of Godstar dripping from the chaos. That's an amazing image, amazing artwork. It's done by my partner Rosary Blue on Instagram if you want to follow them. It's just such incredible stuff. Yeah, so it is this world that drips from the elemental chaos and cools. So the further you get from the elemental chaos down the world, the more stable the world is. But when you flatten out the world, you get this, which is this big star shape. And each kind of point of the star is a different realm. So very different terrain and stuff like that, very different areas, which adds a nice dynamic element. I hate it in Star Wars where you've got like the desert planet and then you've got the planet of water. It just doesn't make sense. So this is my way of like really adding different terrains and environments and very dynamic different terrains and environments. Oh my God, thank you. I'm flattered that you would pay money for this terrain, this setting. I'm very proud of it. I've been working on it for about 7 years. And to answer your question, Novazan, you start small. Like this world started from one shot, and then it turned into another one shot, and it took place in an entire like different world. It took place in the cyberpunk world. And then the players, when they're like level 10, came back to this world, which was originally called the Feywild, but then became known as Godstar, as I developed the world. And the main fleshing out of it came when I moved to Japan for 6 months. I was a teacher in Japan for 6 months, and I didn't have any D&D, and so on my free time, I would bring out a little Word document and I would start writing stuff and I would start sketching stuff. And I started slowly developing this world. But I had already been playing this world for years, like playing this game for years. So I knew characters that existed there. I knew about the Fey Lords. So I made the realms, each one that represented a different one of the dragons. And so it grows slowly over time, and that's why I always say start small, because if you start big right from the beginning, you'll put down things that you'll regret having put down. It makes your world a bit more rigid. When people travel from A to B, you now know what's where, and you're less flexible. So yeah, my biggest things, just let it happen naturally, develop it naturally. Start with a country, start with a tavern or the town. If you want to go big, go with the town. And don't go further than that. And then, slowly expand out other connecting towns. And maybe one day your world could just be the country of insert magical fantasy name here. This was a big undertaking. It took a long time, and I don't know what everything is. I put down names of places, and I have very small bullet points about what that place is, but I haven't developed them as much. I don't develop them until like a player goes there, parties approaching that area. I know and what's nice about the realms is I know what the realm is like. And I've now gone into things like I know what the fashion's like in a realm and all this kind of stuff and the languages that are commonly spoken. But having the realm is nice because if I put a town in, I already know what the theme of that town is going to be. And I'll get into those, a brief breakdown of the realms here now. Just had a few more questions here. Let's see. Gostar is such an amazing world. Now, just for its creativity and for the way that it changes with each party, but also because you can really feel the love you poured into it. Honored to be a player in it. Oh, thank you very much. 6. Ike the Architect. Close to creating a world dripping from the elemental chaos is a multiversal crossover move. So the thing with the dripping of the elemental chaos, I also, when I made this world, I was like, I don't want it to be a sphere. Everyone makes sphere planets, and it just makes sense why you would have a sphere planet. It's just scientifically that makes sense. I was like, I want to be cool. So I was like, oh, it could be cool. And like, what about an unfinished planet that's falling out of something? And it's like, how does that work mechanically? And then it was so cool when I figured out, the shape would be a teardrop. I was like, how do you turn a teardrop into a 2D map? And I was like, oh, you can split it into a star, and then you've got the realms. Everything spans from another question. Like every idea I have had comes from me questioning the previous idea I've had. So for example, like that, I wanted a different shape. So how do you make a different shape? Have it drip from something, whatever. Now, how do I make a 2D map? Oh my God, it's a star. And now because it's a star, I can have all these different segments. Let's zoom in a little bit on this world. So you've got the 6 realms. Most stuff takes place here in the Vale. Very classic vanilla realm. It's got your lush trees and mountains and jungle. It's very nature orientated. Most of my campaigns take place here. And it's a nice one if you want just a classic fantasy world. So you can just stick to this realm. So let me see if I can remember the keys for this. Yeah, okay. So we've got every one of these hexagons is 100 miles. It was 10 originally, and I was like, that's, or 1 mile or something like that. And I realized the world would be tiny if that was the case. So I was like, I wanted it to be bigger. So you've got different areas. You've got Sayre, which is, just big open plains. You got Mohokri, which is this magical heart of the forest. It's where one of my gods mainly reside, one of the gods of life, the Mother Doe. You got loads of towns, and I add them in here every time someone goes somewhere new. But yeah, that's your classic fantasy setting. The PB Rebellion are here in Jotunheim at the moment. It's your classic icy wasteland, massive mountains, and the kind of culture here is very much like a crossover between like Nordic mythology and then a lot of kind of Japanese influence. So there's that crossover, a lot of calligraphy, but also runes, so like calligraphy, rune kind of things. They a lot of writing is really big there. Giant and Dwarvish are big languages here. And then you've got these massive strongholds that were built. They're called the Ettings. And so Tyr, the Fey Lord I talked about there, the White Dragon, talked about him earlier. When he was a Fey Lord and he ruled over this place, he wanted a massive fort. But he wanted all these other forts to surround his fort. So his fort was fortificated by other forts. So there's a fortception. So Utgaror, which is the tallest mountain where his fort is, which is built into a glacier called Maltgaror, is surrounded by all these other forts. You've got Rimgroth, you've got Acherim. I can't even pronounce my own things on the spot. So don't feel bad if you can't pronounce your own fantasy names that you make yourself. But yeah, that's that. We've got Olympus. Okay, this is, I think, to some degree, Olympus might be my favorite realm. To answer previous question there, it was originally based off of Final Fantasy X, the Thunder Plains, and it's also called the Thunder Plains Olympus. It was based off of that place. So there's a big, vast, barren wasteland where lightning storms are constantly crashing down. Players had to cross over this area. There wasn't really anything going for it, but I had these lightning rods all around, these big crystal lightning rods, these big pillars, which are actually, all these blue dots, those are lightning pillars. So these are paths you can take that are safe to travel around, so you won't get struck by lightning traveling through here. And there came a point where one of my players, they were really bored because there was nothing to do here. So they would, one of the things they started doing while they're traveling during their downtime, they would fly up into the air and then use Orb of Invulnerability and crash down. And at one stage, I was like, I had this idea. I was like, what if the ground is hollow? What if this is just a layer of dust and sediment that's built up? And it was weird. It was so wild. This is the best part about, like, you know, not having stuff planned sometimes to a degree. He broke down through the earth, and I just had all these clockworks pieces all around there, and then these kind of crystal tubes moving from place to place, like taking electricity that crashed down and launching it elsewhere. And to summarize, basically, what had happened, it's all happened in my own mind. Olympus used to be one realm where it was just kind of like every other realm, a bit stormy. At one point, they found out how to lift cities into the sky. But obviously, digging out a city and lifting it up as a whole island leaves these massive craters. And so you had all of Olympus flying into the sky, which became known as New Olympus. And then below, you have Old Olympus, where there's still old strongholds and things like that in these massive craters that filled up with water, became massive lakes. And then they needed a way to go to the Sky Islands and back, not just airships, but a faster way to do that. So they had these teleportation things. On the islands, there are these pads you put your hand on, you turn into atoms, basically, you turn into electricity, and you get fired down as lightning into the ground, into these lightning rods down below, which are also a safe method of traveling around. But originally, they were just these lightning poles that could capture people, turn them into energy, and bring them down to Old Olympus, where they'll reappear. And they were these rods, so they would direct you. You'd pick a rod to go into and reappear below it. And they had this whole network of tubes and everything else. And because they had this massive, intricate network of machinery all above Old Olympus, over time, because the residue of the islands kept falling down, this built up into a big, vast, open plain and became the Thunder Plains. And the clouds overhead are from the kind of basically like pollution of these machines that teleport people and cause more lightning and stuff. So what was really funny, when my player fell down into this hollow area, he broke one of these lightning tubes and a bit of lightning shot into him, and his personality merged with the person who got shot through the lightning tube. And there's this whole other side story they had to go on where they had to return that soul to the person. But that is Olympus. There's 3 layers to it. There's the Thunder Plains, and there's Old Olympus down below, and which is like kind of like an Underdark now. And there's Sky Islands, which is New Olympus. So pretty wild stuff. But it all came up like on the spot after playing like at 2 a.m. I was like, it makes so much sense. Let's go. So that's Olympus, and it's really dear to me in regards to that. I was like, I impressed myself with my role play and my improvisation. So it was nice. Moving on, then we've got Limbo, which is the psychic lands of warped lands, very heavily inspired by kind of like I guess like Arabia and things like that, and like yeah, very much like an Aladdin-y themed place. But then you've also got these warped lands, so it's very much like old kind of 60s, 70s, 80s sci-fi worlds, really trippy, weird stuff. You've got like a toxic jungle, which is inspired by Ghibli's Brain's Gone Dead. I've been talking for almost 2 hours. Nausicaa, toxic jungle and that. This is actually a crater where a god fell a long time ago, and from their bones, all these mushrooms grew into massive proportions. And it's also based off of Monster Hunter with the coral highlands and then the kind of rock place down below. Also, you got this big ass Illithid kingdom here where Illithids popped up out of nowhere. There's a massive war that's been going on with them and the Giths. They've basically taken over most of the place. They're pushed back into the chaos, and then they returned, and that's where they are now. You got Diu, which is very much like the Fire Nation in Avatar. Those are volcanoes, massive mountains that then go above the pollution of the volcano smoke and everything else. Very kind of like Chinese mythology. These massive mountains have these temples on top where people study martial arts and meditation and all that kind of stuff. And then Guinea is your classic kind of grungy Dark Souls worlds where you've got loads of undead. The population of humanoid creatures here is very low. It's mainly non-humanoid, mostly monsters and undead that exist here, and the creatures that do, the humanoids that do exist here, exist in these small strongholds where kind of everyone who lives here is ruthless and cutthroat, and they're not very nice people. So they're these societies where everyone's backstabbing each other, and the king's changing every now and then, and being murdered and assassinated. So a very rough place to live. So this is the world of Gostar. And you keep saying you need a campaign setting. I will make one day. I'll make one day when I feel like there's a big audience for it, and I might do a Kickstarter thing. It's gonna be a really nice thing to do one day. And again, if we get 3,000, I'll go on a deep dive on this world, show you everything, talk about all the characters, NPCs, everything else. Yeah, so that is Gostar. Have a heads out. Thanks for answering questions. Enjoy the content. Keep up the good work. Oh, you have to head out. Oh, thank you so much for coming. Do hop in. I'm going to cover the NPCs really quickly. NPC questions, starting with Ike the Architect. Your question from Patreon was that you were curious about how I write NPCs and how I feel about character foils and character party foils. So, I love you, Costa. So, characters, NPCs. I often, a lot of the time, I'll come up with an NPC with a voice. I'll be like, what's a funny voice to do that I haven't done? A unique voice. So I have to base them off a voice. Like, I remember one time I wanted to come up with someone similar to, bloody hell, what's the actor? He's gone from my head now. He's she was only 16. She was only 16. Butler. Alfred from Dark Knight. Can someone help me out here? I'm so sorry. I was trying to practice his voice. I'd never done his voice. That was a terrible version of that, by the way. It's really specific voice. It's a really hard one to get into. But I wanted to do that voice, for example, and I was like, I built a whole character off of that. That's usually my beginning spot, actually. But as the stories go on, you kind of know what characters you need for X, Y, and Z, and you're like, okay, they're going into an assassin guild here. I'm going to make some assassins. I'll link them. A big thing I think to do is to, I should bring this music back again because it's getting a bit manic. Sorry. A big thing with NPCs is I'll always try to obviously give them a purpose, tie them to your players, or design them solely on a character that you know your players will love and adore, or like not even love, but like appreciate. They could hate them for that matter, but like if they can appreciate the design, they could be an absolute bastard of a character, but maybe your characters love those kind of characters. Design that. So in terms of foils, I've found foils are great. I love foils. For anyone who doesn't know what a foil is, basically like a complementary character. So in a movie, say you've got Superman, Superman, if you made a foil character for Superman, it would be a character who complements Superman. So either he's like a double of Superman, he's like a copy, but like evil, or he's got all these traits like Lex Luthor that are the opposite of what Superman believes and stands for. So Lex Luthor is just a human. He has no powers. He's quite wealthy. He's a businessman. You know, Superman just works in like the Daily Bugle. He's got an average job. Lex Luthor is a billionaire, but he's an asshole. He hates the world. He exploits everyone. So they're really, really cool. They're a great way to add some spice to your games. But what I've found is foils work really well, but I don't think they work well when you make a whole party foil. And that's mainly because I think if you introduce a foil to your party, so say you've got, you know, a bard, paladin, and a cleric in your party, and you make kind of counters for them, basically like evil versions of all of those, or like, they don't have to be evil, but like you've got a rival for each one of your party members. When you introduce a party like that, I often find it can come across as quite forced and feels very standoffish. It's very obvious what you're doing, and it can feel unnatural. You're kind of just forcing these characters into the story just for that conflict. And so okay, sorry. Yeah, my mic does that sometimes. It's just like, I'm done now. Thank you for letting me know in the comments. Hopefully it's back now. Anyway, what I was saying, they get forgotten about. Is it back? I hope it's back. I won't keep talking until I get a comment saying it's back. Hopefully, I can see the sound bars moving. So as soon as you can hear me, let me know. Yay! Okay, cool. So where am I? What am I saying? Yeah. So when you add a load of characters like that, they're going to be forgotten about, some of them, and it can feel unnatural, all that kind of stuff. So what I have found works a lot better is you introduce one foil at a time. So create one character that is a good antagonist for one specific character in your party, and you might even find that anti-hero kind of character that you add in, that foil that you add in, might actually vibe way better with another character you weren't expecting it to vibe with. And another character has like a completely different thing with that character. And now they've got a rival. They don't have to be the same. You set them up to originally be the foil for one particular character, but now actually they're the foil for another character, which is really cool. And have them get away, have them escape, or whatever, or if they survive. They don't try to force them to get away. If they die, they die. But what's cool here then, say that they have their encounters with that character, they get away, new foils are introduced, and you find that foil now vibes with another one of your characters, and slowly, each one of your characters in your party gets a moment to shine with this other character, where they talk about their morals, they clash with their morals and all that kind of stuff. And then what you can do, all these foils get away, whatever, these foils meet up somewhere without the parties knowing. This happens off screen, and they all have a common goal now. They all hate this party as a whole. Now you've got a very cool moment. Everyone loves it when villains come together. Also, everyone does a team up, either with heroes or villains. But imagine then, all of these villains that each one of your party members hates all now come together. And each one of them has had their time to be developed and be known by the party. So when they show up, the party's like, we hate you guts. And that's much more interesting. Hello, Vernon Wright. Thank you so much. We're coming to the end of the stream. I'm just talking about NPCs at the moment. Just talked about foil characters and NPCs. yeah, that's what we're chatting about right now. If you have any questions, do drop them in the comments. But we've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to talk about one of my favorite NPCs. I think that was one of the questions I have to be reminded that I've played. Maybe I think that was one of them. My favorite NPC that I've played is so I've got a couple, but one that I really love is a recent NPC that I've designed, and he is called brain's gone. As that revenue, you have the name on your tongue, it's just gone immediately. He's a wizard, and he is called Curse. And so in this game that I've been playing, it's a Ghibli inspired game set in Gostar, but like thousands of years in the past, where magic has kind of just recently been destroyed, and people are trying to remake magic and rebuild the schools of magic and stuff like that. And that is a group called the Red Circle. They're a group of wizards, and they're rebuilding the world, but they're terrible people. And this party has been playing since they're level 0. So what we did is we did about 4 session zeros where they got to play as the child versions of their characters, the children's of who their characters would be. And it was very inspired by Worlds Beyond Number, Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One. It's an amazing podcast on Spotify. Totally free if you've got Spotify. Go check it out. It's just amazing. It's also on YouTube, I think. Best storytelling I've ever seen in my life. Heard in my life, I should say. But they do that. And I was like, that's an amazing idea. I want to do that. And I've wanted to do it for ages, and I saw them do it. And I kind of got a sense of the mechanics they used for that. And so I applied it now for the first time. I want to do it in my second campaign when the beta questions wraps up. But anyway, they played their childhood characters. A campaign setting definitely needs NPCs section. Yeah, I definitely need to do a stream just on NPCs. I think it's going to be like 2 hours of me ranting on NPCs for sure. Just listen to the rest of the stream. Yeah, you can just listen to the rest of the stream, or pop in a question right now before you go. But let me see. That was great. Yeah, well, give the game that I've been playing. They've been playing childhood characters, and one character who I knew would be the villain in the future. I introduced him to the party as a child, and he's this boy who has lost his parents. His parents were red wizards, and they were killed. They were killed trying to kill the tribe of another one of the characters, which they haven't really figured out yet. So one of the characters hates red wizards. This child adores red wizards. His parents are heroes in his eyes. He's also sick. He's got this disease, this curse. It's killing him slowly, and he later takes on the name Curse as a wizard to hide his original name. Very like fake creatures take on other names. And so they established this character. They actually bully him. They're really mean to him. The sickly little child who's lost his parents. And so they set off that character, and he goes on, he grows up, and he doesn't have the support that the characters do have. They all have each other, they inspire each other. All of the characters in the party could have become really horrible people, or villains in their own way, if they didn't have each other, and they didn't have the love and affection that they had growing up. He didn't have any of that. In fact, he was bullied by these people, these privileged people, and he grows up to be the main villain of the campaign so far. And he has been so much fun to roleplay because he's so sad, but he's become so delusional as well. And it's been so much fun. And he's also far more powerful than the party. When they encounter him, he's not meant to be fought. And I tried to establish that a couple of times, but they keep fighting him. But they get away, luckily. But every time they fight him, they lose. And so now they're building up this really big hate for this villain, and I just love it so much. He's just one of my favorite villains, NPCs I've ever made. He's also got a wild, wacky, terrifying design, which I'll show you maybe in the future if I talk about more NPCs. But yeah, favorite NPC was that guy. Just the build up to him. That's the thing. If you want a good villain, you need a build up. You need there to be personal weight. He goes on as well. Those red wizards go on to burn down villages of those families later on in their lives as they grow up into adults. And so all the players hate the red wizards. They have all these different reasons to hate him. And they continue to hate him more and more every time he defeats them and like scares them off. But yeah, My favorite guy is that guy. He's pretty fun. So, Vernon writes that there's a watcher online. Hello. Question for the future. How far is the classy classes system, misspelled system on purpose, level, how far along in the future, in the classy classes is the purpose for it? Level 6 plus trees. So, for the future, how long is the classy classes system? Yeah, I want to take it all the way to level 20. I want it to be, I want to break it up though into segments. So in 4th edition, you had the different tiers of levels. You had 1 to 5, which is like, I think, heroic. 6 to 10 was something else. And then you've got 11 to 15, and then you've got 16 to 20. Those are like segments of storytelling. They're really good. In the old 4E Dungeon Master book, it was really cool. The suggestions they had for adventures you should be experiencing for each of these tiers. But I want to do a table for each one of those tiers that you can move on to automatically when you get to that level, which would open up doors for loads of things. So that's my plan in the future, is to continue to add new ones, but also refine the base one first and get it working. And so I plan to do that in the new year, is start working on it more and more. And my Patreons are going to help me playtest it. So if you want to be a patron and help me with building that in the new year, that'd be amazing. But yeah, that's where I'm hoping to take it in the future. Great question. Thank you very much. So I think I'm going to leave it there. It's been an amazing stream. Thank you so much for everyone who's come along. It's been absolutely fantastic. Your questions have kept me going the whole way. I really need to pee. I've been guzzling down water because I've been so thirsty talking all the time. So I think I'm going to start wrapping up here. But yeah, I'm going to start doing playtesting for that in the future. But thank you for joining. Thank you for this Q&A. I hope I've managed to answer the majority of your questions. If you haven't, please subscribe. And if we get to 3,000 subscribers, we're going to... God, I'm so tired. If we get to 3,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a whole live stream on this world. And I'll say if we get to 4,000, I'll go into NPCs. So please subscribe. If you know anyone who hasn't subscribed or would think they would enjoy this channel, share this video, share this channel with them, show off some stuff. And thank you so much for joining. It's been amazing. Thank you all for coming along. I love you all. Thank you so much. Thank you for streaming, answering questions. Keep the great channel. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, hydrate. Yeah, I've hydrated too much, so that's also my problem. But yeah, very good first stream. Thank you so much all for coming. So much fun. Really great getting to know you, answering your questions, and seeing some new people as well here that I haven't seen before as well. Thank you so much. Yes, and I guess we'll leave it there. I gotta find out a cool way to leave this. Let me see. Let me just set up a little thing here. Sorry, just delaying this a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna head off. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Yes, small request there. You want Blue to say goodbye? Yeah, no problem. Would you like to come up into the video? Want to come up and say hello to me? Say hello to everybody? Oh, hello. Thank you. Here is Blue saying goodbye. For anyone stuck around this long, you get a special hello and goodbye from Blue. Oh my God, you licking my mouth? Lick my mouth right now? Hello everybody, thank you for watching the stream. It's been so much fun. I've been very patient and would like some time with Daddy now. I've only barked like 2 or 3 times. Beautiful. Yeah, there you go. Goodbye. I'm not really interested. Where are you looking? What are you looking at? See, the camera's over here. You see the camera over there? Yeah, there you go. Up here. Yeah. Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for watching. Oop.